Chapter 25. The boys returned to their room across the hall to change into the colorful swim trunks Lil had picked out for them. Bobby went into the bathroom happily toting a cherry red bikini. I changed as quick as I could into the purple one-piece, frustrated that it fit too loosely despite all manner of yellow straps and strings that I did my best to make heads and tails of. I never felt bashful in a swimsuit before that day, but things in my life were changing, faster than I could keep up with. I felt a tad vulnerable being a jig shy of Jaybird naked in a suit that better suited someone older. I pulled an oversized t-shirt over my head just as Bobby emerged looking trim and pretty and all grown up and filled in her bikini. She wrinkled her nose when she looked at me. "What's with the t-shirt? My suit doesn't fit so good." "Let me see." I removed the shirt and let Bobby adjust all the yellow straps. By the time she was finished, the swimsuit fit much better. "Thanks," I said weakly, still shy about leaving the t-shirt behind. Bobby shrugged. "No problem." We left the room, making sure no one saw us coming or going, and joined the boys downstairs by the pool. The room was hot and humid, lined in lime green tile and dusty artificial plants and trees. The pool was small and shaped like a jelly bean, but just the right size for 4 kids. Samson was nowhere to be seen, but that didn't worry any of us. Everyone was used to his disappearance by now. Will was already in the pool, his hair wet and dripping into his black eye. Fish stood at the edge of the pool with his arms folded, staring at the water with a determined look hardening in his scratched face. "You getting in?" I asked my brother carefully, keeping my eye on Bobby's angel where it shivered on her back, gripping its pointed devil's tail in one hand and reaching up to grasp its halo with the other, as Bobby stepped down into the water in front of me. Fish smiled his cocky brother smile and nodded. "I'm good," he said simply. "Good." "Cold, cold." The water engulfed the picture of the little angel as Bobby plunged and the faltering voice in my head grew muffled and bleary. Will Jr. vaulted up out of the water and grasped my wrist, pulling me over into the pool next to him with a splash. Getting my head back above the surface and my wet hair out of my eyes, I found Will's face close to mine, his hand still holding my wrist loosely underwater. Then he moved forward and his lips touched mine, quick and awkward with the taste of chlorine and salt, like maybe he just slipped and bumped his face into mine accidentally. It happened so fast that I hardly had time to react before a dancing funnel of water splashed Will ferociously to the side of his head. Will let go of my wrist, coughing and sputtering, trying to recover from the water that had gushed up his nose. Then he looked up at Fish, who was still standing dry as dry next to the pool, his arms folded across his chest and a smug and swaggering smirk inscribed across his face. "There'll be none of that business with my sister," said Fish. At first I thought Will was going to get angry, and I readied myself for another brawl. And still, Will flashed me an outlaw smile, then made a sudden move toward Fish, pushing hard at the water in front of him with the palms of his hands and splashing a sheet of water up at my brother. "Just tell me," Will demanded. "How do you do that?" Fish, taking a deep, deep breath like he was setting aside an entire year's worth of dread, jumped into the water with a big, splashy cannonball, and the boys launched into a friendly yet frighteningly powerful water fight. Fish definitely had the upper hand. Still feeling dazed by Will's quick, salty, sweet kiss, I hovered in the water, holding on to the cement lip of the pool, watching the water around me surge and swell as waves splashed over the 2 boys and sprayed up over the side. The artificial plants lining the room rustled their dusty leaves in the drafts, and fake ficus trees and parlor palms tipped over in their wicker baskets onto the wet floor. But Fish kept things fairly well under control and caused no permanent damage. I imagined how proud Mama and Papa and Grandpa Bamba would all be when they found out that Fish had wrestled his savvy and finally come out on top, and I wondered if Fish would be able to go back to school in Hebron now if he wanted to. Wouldn't Rocket be wound up and wicked jealous? We'd probably lose power to the house for a week while Rocket sulked. As the water fight intensified, Bobby pulled me into the calmer water at the shallow end of the pool, and she and I sat on the steps, half in, half out of the water, keeping an eye on the door and watching our brothers nearly drown each other over and over. The sound of Bobby's angels in my head had grown steadily more muffled and choppy, become quieter and quieter in the noisy, echoing pool room. Every now and then, Will Jr. would send another smile my way, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to smile back or sink down under the water. "Will likes you a lot," Bobby said, still watching the boys. "I think he's liked you since the very first day you started coming to our church." Despite the fact that I was already wise to the tittle-tattle tidbit, my face went pink and hot. Having Bobby say it out loud made me feel awkward, made me feel too young and too old at the same time. I remembered Papa giving me my special occasion dress just days ago. "I just thought my little girl deserved something pretty and new to wear for her special birthday," he'd say. Papa always called me his little girl, but I wasn't such a little girl anymore. I knew that now, sure as sure. So do you like Will back? Bobby wanted to know. My insides went wishy-washy, and I felt my blush turn from pink to red. I don't know, I said with a shrug that left my shoulders sitting 2 inches higher than they were before, my head tucked in like Samson's not-dead turtle. Maybe? Bobby looked at me, and to my surprise, she smiled. It was not the snarky smile she normally wore, or the quick flash of a secret smile she'd let slip back up in the motel room. No, this particular smile was the glad, lingering kind that one friend gives another when they need it most. That's okay, Bobby said. Don't sweat it. Believe me, take your time. That sounded funny coming from Bobby, who, for all of her 16 years, seemed more than ready to speed right along. As if to highlight this even more, Bobby let out a short, wistful sigh, flicking at the surface of the water with one finger. It's too bad Rocket's not here. Every time he comes to church, the room feels all tingly. I bet he'd be fun to kiss. I looked at Bobby's pierced eyebrow and her cherry red bikini, and I tried to imagine her kissing my brother, sparks and all. Why are you in such a hurry? I asked her. Bobby snorted. You can read minds. You tell me. I concentrated on Bobby and tried to listen. I tried to hear what she was thinking, tried to hear the voice of her angel tattoo inside my head, but it was silent, gone. All I could hear was the splish-splash of the water and the echoes of the boys' laughter bouncing off the walls. I can't, I said after a moment. I don't know why. Then I remembered the very first thing that musical voice had ever said to me. It had been only hours ago, back in the church kitchen. It felt like a lifetime had passed since then. She's really very lonely, you know. Is it hard to be the preacher's daughter? I asked after some considering. Bobby looked at me sharply. What do you mean? I just imagine that people probably expect you to be perfect as perfect all the time, even though you probably just want to be able to mess up like everybody else, I said, thinking of Mama and her savvy. I expect it could get awfully lonesome sometimes. Bobby didn't say anything, so I continued on with a little more backbone, lowering my shoulders an inch and sticking my head out of my shell. Maybe that's what makes you want to move on fast and push other people off. Maybe you don't want to have to set the preacher perfect example. I thought you just said you couldn't read my mind right now, said Bobby, pulling her knees up to her chest on the step of the pool and wrapping her arms around them tightly. Well, I'm just guessing. Your little angel's not talking much at the moment. Maybe it's the water. Angel? Bobby looked at me inquiringly. Your tattoo, I said, that tattoo of the angel with the devil's tail, the one you've got on your back. That's how I hear things. There has to be ink. You mean you can read my mind because I stuck a temporary tattoo this morning? Temporary? I repeated. Well, yeah. Did you think it was real? Bobby stood up and twisted around, trying unsuccessfully to see the tattoo. When I looked, I was surprised to find only a few specks of color freckling her skin where the angel had been, the rest of the image now completely washed off by the water and chemicals in the pool. For a moment, I was almost sad as I realized that the angel's short-lived voice was gone for good. But mostly I was relieved. Relieved that now I could learn about Bobby the normal way, or not at all if that's what we chose. Sitting back down next to me on the steps in the water, Bobby sighed. Mibs, do you ever feel like your life is just some weird dream and someday you'll wake up and find that you're someone else entirely? Bobby slipped down one step until the water of the pool came up over her mouth, nearly to her nose. She blew soft bubbles of air out in front of her and closed her eyes. We both bobbed and swayed in the water, churned up as it was by the boys' aquatic battle. I thought about her question for a long time. I could feel my hair starting to dry and the tips of my fingers and toes begin to pucker and wrinkle. If someone had said those same words to me yesterday, I might have shrugged them off. But a lot can change in a day. A lot.